Good evening, everyone. Welcome. This is the Town of Somers Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. The date is July 16th, 2024. Denise, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Gio,
Present.
Mr. Lansky,
Present.
Mr. Newman,
Here.
Chairman Canestra.
Here.
Thank you.
I request everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to go right into first item on our agenda this evening. This is the application of Eric Maurer and Michelle Mazzaro. This is an application for a special exception use permit to create a one-bedroom accessory apartment in what was a dentist's office attached to an existing one-family dwelling in an R80 residential district at 70 Route 138 Somer. There's someone here to represent the applicant. Could you please come up? Just give us your name and address. You can both. Fine.
My name is Michelle Mazzaro, and this is
Eric Maurer.
and the address is 70 Route 138.
Okay, so you are the applicant. Same. Okay.
Yeah.
Could you briefly describe your application for us? I see we have some plans here also.
Yep. You can see in the plan there is an addition to the main property that was done in 86, I believe, or 85 or 86, and it used to be a dentist office. So right now it's just a very big storage area, and we just want to make it into a one-bedroom apartment. And the idea is that my sister would be living in at the moment, and then eventually when she retires.
Okay, so neither of you are dentists, is that?
No.
Okay. 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 And I do see there's a plan here. Tom, have you been out to inspect this location?
I have.
Okay. Do you see anything that's not in compliance with the code? It looks like the square footage is okay and things like that?
Everything is right there.
Okay. When was this building built?
I think it started the main house 1925, the extension 1985, and I think it was completed on 86.
That's correct.
Okay, because if we're past, I think it's 92, we have an issue with accessory apartments and things like that. Okay.
Now, I
Okay.
do have a question though, since you brought it up.
Mhm.
The initial structure was built way back when. Does it fall on the initial structure or the
Mm-mm.
addition for future?
Both are before April 1st, 1992. So
Both.
No,
both
There-
additions
and-
before.
but if the
1992.
addition was put in after the cutoff date,
Okay, but
where does?
I
it
don't
fall?
think you would be able to, you would need an exception, I think, from zoning.
it's
Because it
not,
has to be an existing structure.
Yeah, but the existing structure was built.
Right,
way
but
before.
even this second structure,
whichever structure they're using has to be before April 1st, 1992. And in this instance, both their original.
No, I understand that part, but I was just thinking
Yeah.
about something.
It would be whichever portion they're using.
I would agree.
Right.
So if they wanted to build another structure now and put an accessory apartment in it,
That would
that
not.
would be an issue.
Right.
Right,
Okay. Just
but
wanted,
they're working with an existing,
right, I understand that. I just wanted,
right,
Was this built as a dentist?
Yeah, it was meant always to be a dentist office when they built it.
and this is on Route 138.
Yes.
Where are you in comparison to Kennedy?
There are neighbors.
The second. So in Kennedy, there's like a smaller blue house right next to it.
Yeah.
It's the next one. It's in the corner with Plumbrook, like next to the church.
Okay, right, because you have to go.
Yeah, we're in the
Get to the
corner.
church, you're right there in the, I see,
Yeah.
okay, so you're right there.
Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Joseph are our neighbors.
Yes. And you're kind of in the nook there in between.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And are you new purchasers to this property? Or have you been there for a while?
2022.
In 2022?
A little,
And this is a one bedroom
Mhm.
I think maybe you mentioned your sister might be occupying that, so just one person would be there?
Yeah.
And Tom, I assume we have not gotten any complaints about this property, its use, and, I mean, we're not using it as a, no, no, okay. And it looks like the apartment has a kitchen. I see the bedroom. Okay. Now, attached to the accessory apartment, there are like some storage areas there,
Yes,
and that's gonna remain storage?
that's gonna remain storage. Yeah.
Okay.
The room on the top, I think that's where like no windows, you just enter the well room. It's just storage.
Okay. And it looks like there's a living room here and then a small home office of some type.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
That storage area access from the main house, not the apartment.
Exactly. We're gonna block that, and yeah, it's gonna be
Won't be-
completely separate.
So it wouldn't be added, right? Because if we go over 800 square feet, that's another
No, yeah, no.
exception
be no-
to the code.
Yeah,
You'd have to get approval.
yeah, no, currently the dentist office used to be connected to the main house, but we're just blocking that off. We just,
So they really
Separate.
separate living areas, so to speak. Everybody has their own
Mm.
privacy.
yeah,
What is the square footage of the new farm?
Chart
Seven-
up there.
yeah, 760. Wanna say 767?
Yes, correct.
431 plus 49 plus 133. It's like,
Your architect, nice set of plans.
That's me.
oh, you're,
Thank you. Yes.
All that.
Yeah, I think that the areas you were just reading with for the light calculation and all of that, it's a little bit above that, just counting like
There it is.
corridor.
Now I see.
Yeah.
light and ventilation. Okay. Okay. Any further questions of the applicant at this time?
Yeah,
For me.
Tommy, when you went out there to the inspection in the sense of, smoke detectors, that's all to code?
And it will be, with the alteration
Yeah.
being proposed.
They're gonna have to get a C of O on it.
It's gonna change. The existing floor plan is that of the old dentist office. Now it's getting reconfigured to become an accessory apartment.
Okay.
So there'll be the smoke detector relocation, one inside the
Yeah.
bedroom, smoke carbon monoxide outside.
And this is like the short version of the set, but the set that Tom's gonna review, it has all of that also shown.
Okay.
All right.
Any further questions of the applicant?
Sound good?
All right, why don't we take this out to the public? We're gonna let the public comment in regard to this application. Anybody who'd like to call in can use one of the phone numbers on the screen. Call in, I'll insert the Zoom meeting ID number and we will put you online if anybody has any comments. Is there anybody here in the audience who wishes to speak in regard to this application? See, there's one gentleman here, but I think he might be the second applicant, so.
Yeah, it looks that way.
Okay, all right, so we'll just give it a minute. Any further comments that you have or anything else you want to tell us before we get ready to vote on this, if we don't have any public comments? Anything else you,
No,
I want to give you opportunity to say anything else, so.
Okay.
Okay.
we'll just have to downside of things that need storage.
Yeah.
That's it.
Have to figure that out.
Yeah, a
Yes.
late spring cleaning is
Yep, yep, yep.
due.
You're gonna be living with both sisters, I guess, close by, so.
Yeah. I've got a little dog, female dog, so I had another lady in town.
Okay, so you're outnumbered then, okay?
But we have a son.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
me and my son are the boys and
Okay, right. So any further comments from the board? Any other questions we have?
No, it's pretty good.
You know, it's a new apartment. I see any issues, so. Okay, Denise or Paul, have we gotten anybody who's come on to comment?
No,
All right, we're gonna close the public portion of this. Okay, last chance before we vote. Any further comments, issues, concerns? Nope. Okay, can I have a motion as to the type of action?
Type 2?
Second.
Mr. Gio,
Aye.
Mr. Lansky,
Aye.
Mr. Newman,
Aye.
Chairman Canestra.
Aye.
Thank you.
Can we have a motion if we're going to grant the special exception use permit?
I'll make a motion to grant a special exception use permit for a one-bedroom accessory apartment at 70 Route 138 Somers for a period of 7 years.
Second.
Mr. Gio,
Aye.
Mr. Harden. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Lansky,
Aye.
Mr. Newman,
Aye.
Chairman Canestra.
Aye.
Thank you.
Congratulations, your application's been granted. It's good for 7 years. After that time, you'll have to come back and visit us once again. Okay, good luck with everything.
Thing.
Thank you for your time.
You can leave.
Yeah, you're all set.
You're welcome to stay.
Okay,
I'll send you an email, Miss Massaro.
Denise, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Have a good evening.
okay. Good night. We're gonna go to the second item on our agenda this evening. This is of Patrick Connolly and Dana Mastrangelo. This is an application for 3 variances for an addition and porch to an existing one-family dwelling in an R10 residential district at 25 Larch Drive, Mayapack. Sir, if you could just give us your name and address, so.
Yep. Good evening, gentlemen. My name is John Scavelli, representing the Connollys for the application at 25 Larch Drive. The proposed application is for 3 separate variances. The owners are looking to add an addition to their property. 2 of the variances have to do with existing nonconformities of the property. So I'll put up the site plan to show you guys.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
So I'll start with the first 2. So the minimum lot size for the R10 residence district is a minimum 10,000 square foot lot size. They have an existing 9,000 square foot lot. There's no proposed changes to the lot size, so that's an existing nonconformity
Pre-existing.
pre-existing. Then the next one, I'm going to jump to actually one of the side yards. It's a similar condition. One of the side yards is a requirement of a 15-foot setback, and there's an existing setback that exists at 13.5 feet, and that also is a pre-existing condition. And I'll just point out that location now.
Sure, that'd be helpful.
So this is Larch Drive. So this is there's a 1-story bump out on the house where there's an existing 13.5 setback, and there's no proposed change there.
I apologize, sir, at the podium. Can you just swing the microphone over so I
Yeah,
can
just
hear
swing
you?
the microphone. Yeah, yes, everybody.
So I was just saying the 13.5 side yard setback is a pre-existing condition. So those are the first 2 variances, and then the last variance, which is the main variance that has to come into play for the work they want to do, is the front yard. So they have an existing setback that's 24.8 feet, where there's a requirement of 25 feet. So there's a deficiency of about 0.4 feet, and I'll just point that out.
So it's a 4-inch variance is what you're asking for. Right?
Yeah.
24 feet, 8 inches, I think. Right.
Oh, correct. Yes. Yep.
Right, just, I'm sure.
Yep. So it's a 4-inch variance. That also is a pre-existing setback on the current face of the house. But the owners would like to expand their house slightly, but they'd like to continue that front yard line for the new addition. So I'll walk you through the floor plan to show like where the addition is happening. And just to
The microphone around, just so everybody can hear you.
Yeah.
The audience.
So just to give some context, so this yellow highlighted area is the new work that would require the variance. So it's a very
I
small.
mean, are you actually pushing out the wall? Are you just putting more siding there or?
So, you know what, I'll show you. So, and I'm just gonna actually just.
And just move that microphone over a little.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just so we can hear you.
So right here, so this gray wall is the existing house. They'd like to bump out an addition, which really would contain a small entryway, a mudroom, and then a small home office. So they'd really like to continue this front line that's facing the street to avoid having this small little 4-inch jog. Just because it would impact the siding and the look of the house that's really facing the street. So it's really to maintain a, you know, an aesthetic across that front facing elevation
Right.
towards the street side. So that's really what's driving the variance, is trying to match the existing wall that.
It's an aesthetic and practical type.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. And I, you know, we do realize too, this is an R10 district. You've got a very small area to work. We do understand that.
Yeah. And we did evaluate stepping it back to avoid that variance completely, but it does impact the look of it, the trim for the siding, it ended in kind of an awkward addition. So, you know, really to get that aesthetic and to match that existing setback, is really what's driving this variance requirement here.
And now that stone garage off to the side, that's pre-existing. We don't have to address that in any way, Tom?
Stone wall,
Well, it says stone garage.
yeah, that's a non-conforming accessory building.
So that is what it is. And I guess only because he's doing a change to the existing building, that's why we have to look at all of the variances on it. All of the, you know, anything that's an exception is why we have to address it.
It's an expansion of an non-conforming use.
Right, so we have to look at all the current non-conforming issues, even though they're pre-existing. Okay. And I see the lot's 90 by 100, so yeah, you're 9,000 square feet, so yeah. Okay. Anything else you'd like to say in regard to this, or?
I mean, we tried to keep the impact minimal, like where, you know, they could add on the property that's, you know, really in a conforming area for, you know, a majority of the addition. So it was really like as minimal of a sliver that we could take to meet that existing front setback when we were kind of evaluating where they could expand on the property.
Are you adding any height to the house?
Slight height, not another story, but they are redoing the roof because this addition is 2 stories, so the roof needs to be redone, and the roof pitch ends up being a little bit higher, but it's not another like story above that. It's just like a larger roof line because now the perimeter of the house is larger with the addition.
Right, and this is a 2-story house plus a basement.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. How many bedrooms and baths? Just curious.
2 bedrooms. And they're adding a bathroom, so it would be 2.5 bathrooms for the proposed.
Good. Okay.
And I do have elevations if that's helpful to see.
So, I mean, in my mind, this variance request is about as, yeah, it's 4 inch.
Yeah,
Or
Not going past what it already is.
Yeah.
And there's a very clear argument that what's already been built.
And the aesthetics, I think, would dictate that it
And,
kind of makes sense to have the the front of the house all at the same.
and quite frankly, if you look up and down the street on Google Maps, there are several houses closer to the street. This is not out of conformance with the neighborhood in any way, shape, or form.
Okay,
So-
thank you, Bart.
No.
And it's a burden to try to jog the house in away from an existing line.
And when you go away from the existing line, it looks like an addition then, you know, it looks like you stuck something on there, as
It's not-
opposed to it being flush with the house. So you're re-siding the house, I guess.
Correct.
The
Yeah.
whole house is gonna be re-sided.
Yeah.
Make, you know, try to match stuff, it never works.
Yeah, and that's why this really came up is that seam. You know, I know it's a small amount of inches, but it makes a big difference in the overall aesthetic, and you know, it's a big investment. So they really, you know, the aesthetic's important to them.
Right.
I know.
So, and so it's a 4-inch variance for the front yard setback. But since the construction doesn't affect either of the other two variances, we have to go back and give a variance for
You'd,
that.
if he's requesting it, then we're what I would recommend granting them.
Okay.
But frankly, there is many boards who don't require variances for existing conditions. The house is built, it's legal,
It's pre-existing, right?
pre-existing.
All right.
So that's a broader discussion
Right.
than this. I mean, he's requesting this, side yard variance or what have you for an existing condition.
Yep.
I'm certainly not gonna say no to it.
Yep.
I agree.
We're just kind of affirming what it is
What
allowed to have.
already
Right.
exists, it's legal today.
Right.
So.
Right.
And quite frankly, if he's 25'8", we're not even granting any more than he already is in terms of closest to the street. But there's a clear argument how this is an extension of a nonconformity, so that is why he's here. But I think the architect's been very thoughtful, and the plans are full and make a lot of sense, and there's nothing which stands out that it's gonna have any deleterious effect on the neighborhood.
You know,
Agree.
4 inches are going to change the character of the neighborhood.
No. Not that neighborhood at all.
Any further comments from the board? Questions?
I'm good.
Look
Okay.
good.
Would you like to say anything else before we go to the public?
Nope. Yeah, I'm all set.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so Denise and Paul, let's bring this out to the public. There's nobody here in the audience. So if anybody in the public would like to speak in regard to this application, now's your opportunity to call in and use the Zoom meeting ID number, and we'll be happy to hear any comments you have. So, okay. These lots are always tight, so the R10, this area here, so
Very much
Hmm.
so.
almost anything you do usually creates a little bit of problem, but. Okay.
And the numbers you stated, it's 9,000 and 13.5,
Correct. Yeah.
13 foot 5 inch.
Yes.
Okay. Those are real numbers.
Yep.
So there's technically 3 variances being asked for, 1,000 square feet on the minimum size of the lot. And then there's a 1 foot, guess it would be 7 inches, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the side yard, and then 4 inches for the front yard. That would technically be the 3 variances the applicant is asking for here, 2 of which are pre-existing non-conforming. So we're only really granting a 4-inch variance.
That's it.
Okay. Denise and Paul, do we have anybody who was trying to call in?
No.
All right, we have no comments from the public. So we're going to close the public hearing. Last opportunity. Anybody from the board have any comments, questions, issues?
Good.
Nope.
Sir, is there anything else you'd like to say before we vote on the application?
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Okay, can we have a motion for the type of action?
Type 2?
Second.
Mr. Gio,
Aye.
Mr. Lansky,
Aye.
Mr. Newman,
Aye.
Chairman Canestra.
Aye.
Thank you.
Can we have a motion if we're going to grant the variances requested here, of which there were 3?
I'll make a motion to grant 3 variances. A 1,000 square foot variance for the lot size. A 1 foot 7 inch variance for the side yard and a side yard setback, and a 4 inch variance for the front yard setback.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Mr. Gio,
Aye.
Mr. Lansky,
Aye.
Mr. Newman,
Aye.
Chairman Canestra.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Congratulations, sir.
Very much.
Your variance is granted, and good luck to the home.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
Okay, next thing we should go into here is approval of the May 21, 2024 meeting minutes. I'm just gonna approve by voice consensus. Actually, I don't think you were here, Bart, for the May meeting.
I was not.
He
I
can still, he can still vote because he was given an opportunity to read them in draft form.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. So, because we have to have a. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a quorum to vote on it. Okay, so I'm just gonna request a voice vote. All in favor of approving the minutes from the May 21st, 2024 meeting? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Any abstentions? No. Okay, so Denise, those minutes are approved. While we're
Thank
talking
you.
about how meetings, I will just mention that we do not have a meeting in August. There's a vacation and other scheduling conflicts. So our next meeting will be the third Tuesday in September, which will be September 17th, 2024. And then the only other item I know on the agenda is hopefully we can have a final discussion regarding the definition of floor area for accessory apartments. I know we still had some word,
Yep.
some wording issues. So I think we should try to come to a final consensus so that we can give it to Denise for the town board to vote on. So Tom, you might be best to describe what our pending issues are and, you know, where we're at here.
Sure. So we had done a few drafts, and then at the May meeting, there was a proposed draft. There were two comments about that version. One was that we should be more specific about the minimum and maximum square feet. The prior wording said between 300 and 800. And it was suggested that we say a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 8, just to be very specific. That was universally agreed, I think.
I think that was agreed, right? We just
Yeah, that was
be specific and not just said,
right, not between.
not between, right?
So the other suggestion was around the word. So initially, the initial wording, the existing wording, when it lists exceptions to the count of square footage, was one of the exceptions was unconditioned porches. It was suggested at that May meeting that we should use the word uninhabitable instead of unconditioned.
Then there was a question I think about uninhabitable.
Right. So then we got a lot of great information from the building inspector about that word. You know, the issue is there's uninhabitable, there's non-habitable, there's inhabitable, and habitable. All of some of those, none of those are defined in the Somers Code. At least one of those is defined in the state code. So it's a tricky word. Anything that's not defined, you have to use a common definition of. So it does seem that, so that word, excuse me, we can get into some trouble with that word. So Tom suggested that if we were to use that word, that we should define it. And that rather than use uninhabitable, we should just use habitable and then provide a definition of habitable, which would, you know, change the context of the wording a bit. So there's, then we had a comment about the contradiction between, we'd actually be creating a definition in town code that would contradict state code. Would directly, you know, our definition of habitable would be very different than state code. So, which I assume, Tom, we're allowed to do that, right?
Yeah.
Two different animals, local law and state law.
Right. We are allowed to do that. I mean,
Wise to do.
I guess I would question, yeah, do we want to start, you know, really?
I mean, when we talk about square footage, I mean, I think square footage in a house in general is based on heated square feet. So can we just say heated square feet?
Well,
But so habitable, I think the idea is whatever the apartment is. So if you have a closet in the closet's not habitable, but it's still part of the apartment. When you count the square footage of an apartment, you're counting the closet spaces which are in it, even though they're not habitable. So most definitions for something like this don't go to the habitable definition because that's used differently in the state code. So they go to a gross floor area or a floor area, or you could make a definition for an apartment. That would be within or accessory apartment floor area in the code. But I think what we had said originally was that we were thinking about counting closets and spaces which were within the apartment and used by the apartment. And so that's where I got.
Right.
Right, so, this, I suggested definition was a space within a dwelling unit that is meant for living purposes and is heated and or cooled. So a closet is,
Heated or cooled.
well, living purposes, right? You don't live in a kitchen either, but we count it, it's part of your living space. My closet where I keep my clothes is part of my living space, so I think technically we could get away with that.
I mean, for.
But is it necessary to, do we really want to go and add a new definition in addition to changing wording? There was a time, I don't know, Tom, how you feel. I know this all came about because of the suggestion to use habitable. If on the prior version where it was just unconditioned porches, were you okay with it then? Or do you think this is an improvement to that?
I would be okay, whatever the board decides.
Yeah.
As far as the definition, the goal is to get some clarity as
Right.
to how to measure, to come up with the calculation between 300 and 800 square feet.
I mean, Tom, for like tax purposes in town with the size of a house, isn't square footage based on heated space?
Totally different calculation.
Yeah, it's not, again, it's
They-
something
They do half stories, they do different things for, can I give you the definition of an accessory apartment in the town of Somers? A dwelling unit which is incidental and subordinate to a permitted principal one-family residence use and located on the same lot therewith, where each unit is occupied by the owner of the premises. So I would prefer to add something onto the end of that definition of how that's measured.
I mean, then we get into the whole issue of, we were gonna say then the size of the apartment excludes porches, decks, all those things.
Well, that's not, yes, I don't have a problem, but it should exclude a
Well,
exterior space.
but we did add, I mean, we've already added to the existing definition how you calculate floor area in an accessory apartment, not in the definition, but in the code itself, 170-70E.
Based on ceiling heights. et
Right,
cetera,
said the floor area for an accessory apartment shall be calculated as measured from the outside walls of the dwelling unit for full stories. The floor area for an accessory apartment shall be calculated from where the ceiling height is 5 feet or greater above the finished floor for half stories. So we've defined the measurement,
Yep,
and then the code listed the exclusions, right? Which would be garages, cellars, heater rooms, unfinished basements, decks, at the time unconditioned porches, balconies, and breezeways shall not be considered part of the floor area. The objection was the use of unconditioned, or the suggestion was to replace unconditioned habitable. And Melissa made the suggestion. I'm not sure if she just didn't like the word or she had something more significant in mind. I don't recall.
I just worry that habitable gets us into a whole different thing.
Right. So if unconditioned, I mean,
I'm okay with it.
What if-
That's original wording?
unconditioned, I mean, or is unheated just more perfectly clear?
I like unheated,
Well.
Yeah.
Unheated porches.
right? Because if it's not heated, then it's a porch or a deck or something else.
Well, it's not just unheated space, we're saying an unheated porch. So in other words, you have a screened in porch, doesn't count. That's
If
essentially.
you have a patio
Have
outside
a 3-season room that's not heated.
or
Yes,
a
that doesn't
freeze,
count.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
so we would just change it to unheated as opposed to.
Either go back to unconditioned or change it to unheated.
Does unconditioned imply though unair conditioned?
Yeah.
Well, that was maybe part of her suggestion.
Unconditioned means not heated and not AC'd.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I always hear about conditioned, I think of air conditioning.
No, but that's a general nomenclature from the code.
Okay.
A conditioned space is defined.
It's defined in state code.
State-
I'm reading Tom's notes to give credit.
So heated or AC. Okay.
Yeah, so that's clear with the nomenclature, state
So
code.
we either stick with what we've got and say unconditioned or we say unheated. I mean, generally, if you don't have heat, you're not gonna have air conditioning. Right? No one's gonna have air conditioning someplace and not heat.
Well, Bart's point was a good one. Don't use and or. It's or.
Yeah.
Can't have heat or air conditioning.
An unheated or unair conditioned space? Whatever.
I defer on that.
Okay.
Condition for me cover
Okay.
covers it both ways.
I think it's,
However you
get rid of the habitable issue.
Yeah.
I like that to go away.
Yep.
I agree. I think we're all in agreement that adds confusion. We have to put a definition in. Let's keep this as simple as possible. But then any of the other wording, I think I'm okay with it. If you guys are strong on one way or another, I think it says it.
Tom, and you have to do the calculation. Would you rather have it say unconditioned or unheated?
I'd have to see it rewritten in order to
Okay.
Dissect it.
And again, this is just with regard to porches. It doesn't apply. The others are
So we could say unheated,
Garages.
unconditioned, or unheated and unair conditioned. Those are our three choices, right? I would go with any one of the three, if you're strong, because I think they all say the same thing.
You don't have, anybody have that state code definition of conditioned available?
Yeah, I can do that.
We just gotta
It's in the email if you have that.
Well, in the email you said, I think
It's in the,
it says you mentioned that it is defined in state code, but I don't know if you list.
yeah, I think I put it in there. I think it was in there somewhere. Little further down. And then, yeah, because the state code definition was in there and it was compared to
Oh, here we go.
the dictionary definition of the same word. The state code omitted bathrooms and couple.
Talking about habitable or we're talking about conditioned?
With,
Conditioned.
we're talking about, yeah.
Conditioned excludes bathrooms?
No, habitable does.
Habitable excludes bathrooms. Yeah.
In the state.
Want to exclude bathrooms?
Wanna do-
No, right. Which a bathroom, they could have a 500 square foot bathroom.
Interesting. Under the 2020 building code, there is no definition of condition, but maybe under the residential code, Tommy?
Possible.
Conditioned almost sounds to me like, it's
That's-
conditional.
Looking.
You know what I mean?
Or
Like it had,
under the.
Oh, and that's so go to the dictionary.
Any of the,
It's not defined.
found it some.
That's one, Tom points out,
Let me
not
start on-
subject to conditions or limitations.
right.
The other.
It's the other way conditions is used. Yeah, it's an ambiguity. I'm trying to make this unambiguous.
You could limit the maximum size of a bathroom. Change the square footage from
Okay, so
See, you have to
200 square feet to 700.
We have-
feet. State code of habitable. There's so many different options here. It's just that there's
See, we're going down,
nothing that 5 different people wouldn't do 5 different ways as far as calculating the square footage.
see, habitable
Yeah.
brings you down a
Right.
rabbit hole.
the residential code, Tommy, has 3 definitions which have pertinence. Conditioned air, air treated to control its temperature relative to humidity or quality. Conditioned floor area, which I gotta refer to another section. In conditioned space, an area or room that is enclosed within the building thermal envelope and is directly or indirectly heated or cooled using fossil fuel or electricity as the energy source. I actually like that definition.
Fossil fuel or
Or electricity as the energy source.
what if it's solar?
That's electricity. So
I guess.
So if,
Code doesn't permit solar for a primary.
Okay,
A code.
but solar creates electricity.
right.
so unconditioned,
Mm-hmm.
we say unconditioned, then that would seem to be fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
And incongruent with the general knowledge of the term is.
Right.
Unconditioned,
Was the original wording.
Yeah, which is, I think is fine.
unconditioned. Could someone make the assumption, oh, that means there is no condition there?
All right.
Meaning, you know what I'm saying? Unconditioned, meaning there's no condition. So what do you know what I mean? I'm taking condition to a whole different definition. Like, you know, conditions for approval, you know what I'm saying? Compared to conditioned space.
I mean, unheated is,
How about unconditioned air?
Or you could add that definition. And it couldn't be confused.
You know, I'm playing devil's advocate here because, you know, I
Yeah,
have to think about
I
applicants.
think you're reaching on that. Yeah.
About applicants who are gonna say, well, what does that mean, unconditioned? Unconditional? Unconditioned air? Is there an, you know,
I mean, I have a general preference not to add a definition if I don't have to.
Yeah, I don't think we need to add another.
yeah, I would prefer.
So,
not
so
to
if
add-
unheated makes us not have to do a definition, then
I'm
Fine.
fine.
only talking.
I think unconditioned is clear, but if other people don't, then unheated is fine.
Okay.
And we won't worry about AC.
Right, because no one's gonna air condition a place and not heat it. Right. That doesn't make sense. I've never even heard of that. I guess it could happen, but
So will we, give members that are not here an opportunity to comment, or are we?
I mean, I guess we could send it out to everyone and we could say, look, here's what we've decided. You have 10 days to decide. Because then we gotta move on,
Right.
because we've been holding this for too long and we want to get this to town board and get it resolved. And we'll
May
do
I
that.
make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Please, Tom, if you can send me that final. I don't know, my head's spinning. It could be what we already had. But I had drafted a memo. If
Yep.
you could go back to my memo and make the appropriate changes, and then we could send it out so that everybody has the chance, you know, Melissa and Paul and Bill. Melissa was the one that really wanted the change. Paul and Bill had no issues with what we had, but the time frame, I would have to give them not just arbitrarily, maybe 10 days. I would have to look at when I have to get that to the supervisor's office to get it on the agenda for the August 8th meeting. So
Okay.
that would really have to be the deadline that we
Yeah.
use.
Okay.
I can resend you my memo.
Again, if it's the month after, I mean, I don't think there's any I mean, yeah. So what date would be your deadline to have this agreed?
July 31,
End of the month?
25, no, July. I don't know a calendar in front of me, the 25th of July,
Okay. I will.
which is next week.
Okay, yeah, today's the 17th. The 25th is a week and 2 days from today.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
I'll
I would
just-
have to have a memo to the supervisor's office by 12 noon on that day. However, you just said, you know, putting it off to September might not be the end of it, but you know, they have to get on their agenda, then they have to set a public hearing, and we
Right.
could be looking at the end of the year, by the way things move. If that's okay, then so be it. But, you know, if we want to have that available, especially for Tommy's use. You know, we're getting situations now where, you know, mentioned before, people are selling, and they have to come in and renew their permit. We have somebody coming before you in September that has a very exceptional case of wanting to put an apartment in a house that was built after 1992. So, you know, it's,
Okay. So I'll put this out for comment. I'll give it a deadline prior to the 25th, a
Yeah.
reasonable deadline prior to the 25th, and it's comment by then or not. Now, if there's a disagreement, if there's a comment and there's some disagreement, then we may not make the cut. And we'll
then
put
we
them
have
on.
to put it on the
But if everyone-
September agenda.
Now, keep in mind, technically the four of us could vote.
Right.
And we
Right,
represent a quorum and
right.
finish this thing.
We
But
really
I'd like
just
to give
want to
everybody
get,
the
we
yeah.
really just want to get input from the three that are absent.
Yeah, just to
At
make
this
sure nobody
point.
has. Yeah, I mean, I think Melissa would probably be the one who might have comments. I'm not sure Bill
Right.
and Paul at this point.
I would
might have
agree.
Comments. Okay.
So if I could, since this was a short meeting, this now came up twice tonight, 1992, April 1st, 1992 came up twice tonight, just now and earlier in the meeting. So having now read this quite a few times, in looking at this, I just wanted to get an opinion. When you read this code, 170-70E, it says each accessory apartment shall contain not more than one bedroom unless, in the opinion of the Zoning Board of Appeals, a second bedroom can be adequately accommodated within the existing building and will not overburden the property and the building and the building was issued a certificate of occupancy prior to April 1st, 1992. For the first time, having read that, I had a different interpretation, which was that does April 1st, 1992 only apply to the granting of the second bedroom?
No, there's another paragraph in there which says April 1st, 19.
It does again?
Yes. I'll pull it up.
Yeah, technically accessory apartments are not, are a variance if the building was built after April 1st, 1992. They have to come before us.
Yeah.
I noticed with this special exception use permit tonight, we didn't get our normal stat sheet. With all the
checklist.
Yeah, the checklist. Yeah, I do like that. but
Wait, what do you mean you didn't get it?
We
It
don't,
wasn't in the packet.
yeah, it wasn't in the packet this
Oh
time.
my goodness. Tommy, is it in your packet?
I have one.
Okay.
Oh
Really?
my, I'm
No.
sorry.
I mean, we went through everything, but yeah,
You
I
know
just didn't
what?
see that in there
That
because that's
was-
such a great sheet. I didn't see
That
any
was my,
problems.
that was my fault. I'm still trying to get into the rhythm of including that. I have it. Tommy's got my paperwork. I apologize that I did not give that to you.
Okay, not a big deal, but that is
Ugh.
just such a useful tool. and just
Yes,
going forward,
yes.
Yeah,
So Tommy, 170-70 subparagraph B.
Is it in B also?
An accessory apartment may be located within the principal dwelling building or an accessory building, provided that such principal or accessory building was constructed or issued a building permit prior to April 1st, 1992.
Okay.
correct.
I've been reading this section a lot and it occurred to me that this reference to 1992 was specific to the second bedroom,
Yeah.
as long as it says somewhere else.
However, I can tell you
Well,
that since I've been the secretary, I recall a special exception use permit issued for an apartment to be created in a house that was built after 1992. I forget what the circumstances were.
I mean, there could be an exception that we give a variance from the code. I mean, depending on the property, but generally the code doesn't allow it.
Yeah.
I had a different code question for the board, which is, it seems that, I believe in climate change. It seems we're having more storms. It seems that those storms are getting stronger. And one of the few things that I think the board could do is we could add something to the property maintenance code where if homeowners or business owners, property owners in general, are required to maintain their trees, which are proximate to the electric lines and could fall and impede on the electric lines and are in a condition which suggests that they might. And I think what's happened now is we rely on our utility companies to do trimming, and people put whatever trees they want. They don't care if they're old and if they're ready to fall. And we have very few areas besides Heritage Hills where we have lines below the ground. And it would seem that if there are obvious instances of where people aren't maintaining trees and they're gonna fall on lines, it would be helpful for the building department to have something in the property maintenance code where they could cite people and say, cut your trees.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's really tough about that is that would be an incredible financial burden
Mhm.
potentially on a lot of property owners. So I would think that,
But why are we shifting that to everyone's gotta lose power? You're shifting
well,
private burden to a.
no, well,
But the utilities are responsible for maintaining those lines.
I think,
They're responsible for the property. Like that should be your burden.
I think that, well, I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't know that the town would, I think they'd be somewhat reticent to pass a law like that. However, if we, another way to handle that would be, I think that the utilities are more than happy to come take down a tree if it's identified to them, right? I remember a few years back, I kept I lived on 118 at the time, and I knew every tree that was gonna fall, and I eventually watched my predictions come true as time went by. There's still one that is there, but I think there is a remedy to that if there'd be some administration on the town's part. I'm not disagreeing with you, but that's a tremendous financial burden that some people just quite simply could not afford.
But well, you're saying it's a financial burden for a property owner to maintain his property.
I mean, so if I bought a house and all the now I got 14 ash trees, right? Because all the ash trees are dying,
Yeah.
and some have been dead for a while now, and so now the limbs are starting to fall, and eventually the whole thing will fall. So I got 14 ash trees that all could fall on the wires. That's 20 grand worth of tree work, and I'm going to be cited. That's tough. It's a tough one.
Well, yeah.
Don't forget, you got the right of way from the utilities. And it's their responsibility to take down the trees
No.
and within the
It's
right
not.
of way.
It's not their responsibility to take down.
It's their right.
They have the right if they want to do maintenance.
Right.
And the maintenance is not the different thing.
Well,
Well, they've taken down trees.
Yeah.
I've seen them take down full trees.
yes,
If the whole tree is gonna fall, like they do the least amount that's required, and then that goes on to everybody's rate. And I'm not saying that the town will need to go cite 1,000 people here. I'm saying that if you have a clear instance, that the building department will then have the power to cite them. And that's all we're talking about, is if you put it in the property maintenance code, like we have bamboo, as if you have bamboo on your property, the building inspector can cite you and ask you to remove it.
because I know from personal experience with bamboo, it's very aggressive.
Well, I know from personal experience that
Yeah.
we have people who lose their power here who have life-threatening things.
Right.
And to have that burden of, because people don't maintain their property on everybody and on the utility where they just use it as a profit center to go and raise rates, it's not a great idea.
Because I will.
Frankly, it should be something, it should be in the planning code as something that they evaluate when they evaluate site plans, but it should also be in the property maintenance code. So there can be something which is citing in those instances where it's clear.
Because I will say, like, my personal experience with this particular thing we're talking about, there was a limb very close to the primary lines in my neighborhood. All right, and I called them up. It took a period of time, over a year, before they cut that limb off, because if it did snap, it was, taking care of the primary lines. They, you call them up, they'll take care of some issues.
So, yeah, but the world's changing. We're having storms we haven't seen before.
I just don't know how you police this.
But it's the same way that
And I can see neighbors calling on one another, you know, well, look at it, he's got a bad tree.
I mean,
What's the
That-
judgment
that's-
call
We
on this?
already get those calls.
Oh, my
That's the
God.
same way that's already policed. We already, the same mechanism which exists is the building department, when they're advised of a condition, they send out somebody, and they take a look, and they decide whether to issue a summons. They may call and say, hey, can you do something? And they may wait until a branch falls, but they have that power then. What we're saying right now is, you can put everybody, and you know, we have a lot of senior citizens in Heritage, we have a lot of people who rely on power and it's life threatening. And to say that we're not gonna have the ability to do anything about it besides call the utility, who may or may not be overwhelmed at that time, who may take 6 months or a year, and then we all have to be subject to that. I don't think that's good governance.
Well, I mean, I think that that's an issue I think is something that should be initiated by the town board. I don't think the zoning board of appeals should make that recommendation. I think, your point's valid.
Taking on a cost and
I would
that should be
lobby.
the responsibility of utilities, you know, they're responsible for maintaining the lines and having
They're not responsible for your trees. You put trees,
Well,
right up there.
I mean, I bought a house, if I bought a house in 2008
you're responsible.
and there's an oak tree out on the street, State Road, let's say, that's been there for 50 years before I got there. And in the 20 years I've been there, it's become weak and it might fall on the line.
Yeah.
And it's a $4,000 tree to remove. And I'm now going to get fines. I'm going to be cited by the building department until I remove it. That's a real, I mean, I think that takes,
that's an onerous requirement, I think, on a property owner.
I just think it's, I don't know, that would.
Whereby if the
there would need to
utility
be-
company had put the lines underground, we wouldn't be having this discussion. Right.
There could be a long,
Right?
They just upgraded the grid.
I think there would have to be a lot of consideration to that. I mean, I think it's something to bring that you might want to lobby the town board to
I mean,
do something about that, to think about that as a future concern with the increased storms, with the increased rainfall amounts over the last 2 to 3 years. I thought you were going to talk about drainage.
So we have a task force. I can't recall, maybe Tommy remembers, the town board has a utility task force. And there are at least 2 town board members on that task force. Perhaps that's the avenue in which that gets suggested.
And
I mean, we have complaints like this, and I've been told by the town attorney that if a neighbor has a tree that the other neighbor's concerned that's gonna fall on their property, not utility lines, but their property, but perhaps into their house, which could be worse than having no electric. There's nothing you can do. If the tree falls, they call their insurance company and the insurance companies battle it out.
And also, like you said, we're not going to go out and cite 1,000 houses tomorrow, but it's going to be the more extreme instances, which are going to
That's
give.
all we're doing.
I think if you had those instances that were that critical, I think the town government could have the utility take care of it. I think in the case where it got to the point where you were willing to do a citation under a law like this, I think that's one which would be severe enough where the utility would handle it.
Yeah, but the thing is, none of us and almost no citizen has likely gone to the town board over this. But they have called the building inspector, and they will call the building inspector, because that's just the nature of when you see a problem, that's who you call, right? If you see a problem like this, that's the first thing that comes into mind. They don't think about, oh, we're gonna, there's a couple guys who on the town board who communicate with the utility, and maybe that's not, that's just not gonna be
Right.
the thought problem.
And then in that case, I would say the building inspector should make the recommendation to the town board. I just don't think it should come through
It doesn't have
ZBA.
to come,
Yeah.
I can make the recommendation to the town board,
I mean, well, you can as a private citizen,
Yeah,
like I said,
yeah.
go and,
yeah, it wouldn't be through the zoning, it just,
yeah.
that's fine.
When you think about the utility company, they replaced almost every telephone pole in town, had to rewire, pull out the old poles. You wonder, like, why don't they just put the lines underground? I mean,
I think-
is it that much more expensive? I guess it must be.
It is that much more.
Because you know what it is now, they have to still maintain them. We still have power outages. You would think in the long run, they would save money by putting everything underground. One would think.
Yeah, well, until
But,
you hit rock in half the town.
well, that's probably the biggest problem, rock. But,
You're cutting roads. It's a huge undertaking.
It's,
right,
and you have a different level of costs if something goes wrong.
I mean,
They don't
wires,
typically go wrong underground, but when
Right.
they do, it's not simple.
any new developments require everything underground.
Yeah.
Everything's underground. I mean, it, you know,
Very few municipalities require that.
I mean, I would venture to say that probably the cost that they would, the additional cost it would take them to put underground, plus all the costs we're paying to take down trees and maintain the lines, I would think in the long run, it'd be cheaper to put them underground. One would think. But, you know, I don't know enough.
Long range plan, yeah.
Long range has got to save the money.
Money do you have now to accomplish?
I mean, we're already,
Right.
I mean, everybody who's put in generators, I mean, generators cost, you know, $10,000, $5,000, $10,000. It would have been cheaper to pay for me to put my lines underground than get a generator. I have a generator at home because I'm just tired of losing power all the time. Yeah, you know, it's.
Maybe they were approached, the utility company, and I saying that each resident was gonna give them $10,000 on the street. Maybe they'll do that road, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you have to do it all.
Yeah, you'd have-
I mean, my neighborhood happens to be underground, but doesn't matter because the power comes into my neighborhood from somewhere else.
Right.
yeah, I mean, how many times does the power go out on Warren Street and Heritage goes down?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what, and you take out 3,000 people. Because the trees aren't maintained on Warren Street.
They do, I know, I mean, I know the Nice Egg vegetation management program has done a really stepped up efforts in the last, I'd say, 5 years. They come and present to the town board. I've seen them do their presentations. I don't know if that's an annual thing or what, and there is a guy who's, you know, that's his job. And it's on a cycle. I don't know if it's a 5-year or 10-year cycle where they're, you know, throughout their coverage area, they do this vegetation management program.
You know, the poles and everything too are also, I mean, they hack up a lot of trees. The poles are very unsightly. I mean, you just go down our main street right here.
Yeah.
And you just look down the street and see all the poles. They're ugly, but you know, is it a lot less expensive than putting them underground? I guess so, but you pay the cost in other ways, you know? But
Yeah, no, I mean, I get your point.
Yeah, it's not gonna get better. And you see the difference. We lose power on 22 because you have New York City lands as you head towards southeast, and they don't maintain the trees there. And so those lines go down, your DEP property.
getting the DEP or New York City to do something?
Well, that's my point.
Wait, you're wasting your time.
They don't.
Right,
And
come on.
so,
We'll give them a citation. You know?
why not?
Yeah, the newly created arborist department will get right on that.
Yeah.
Why not? How else are we gonna, be okay with some of these storms?
Can I make a homeowner's insurance claim if I need tree because it's in a dangerous condition?
No.
What you can do is you can
Maintenance.
put your neighbor on notice. Say that the tree is dangerous.
Right.
And once you put your neighbor on notice and they have time to cure, you've now established a negligence claim. And so that's what you can do from a legal perspective.
But I still can't invoke, if I've been put on notice, I still can't invoke my insurance.
No,
If I don't have the
no, there's no
$1,000.
insurance for you to have an old tree.
Yeah.
I mean, you have an old tree. You saw it when you bought the house. It's a condition. It's no different than any other condition. And, I think as a homeowner, it's your responsibility.
Right, but nobody knew 20 years ago that all the ash trees were gonna die.
Yeah.
That's a major condition.
Those trees are huge also.
I've taken
Expensive to
down
take down.
a dozen of them
Yeah, they were beautiful, but.
over time.
All right, I think we should wrap it up. Anybody have anything else to say?
I'm good.
All right, any further items? Anything else we need to discuss? Okay, so we're gonna conclude the meeting. Good night, everyone. The time is 8:37, and we'll see everybody back here on September 17th.
Good
Okay.
night, everybody.